My name is Dhruv. I'm here to talk about my racing career and my journey through motorsports and racing through multiple challenges and obstacles along the way. One of the recurring themes that I've seen throughout my career is everything that could go wrong has. And it's been so crucial to just stick to doing what I can do and what is in my control and making sure that I do that right. So I'm going to be just going over my journey as a motorsport athlete. I don't come from a motorsports background. My family has no history or association with the sport. I started racing at a very old age. By the time I was 13 is when I started competing in go-karts and did my first proper competitive race in a car when I was 18 years old. And in racing years and racing terms, that is the time when you should be having your midlife crisis, because most racing drivers start karting at the age of 5 and they're already competing by the time they're about 7 and 8 years old. To add to that, I did not have a whole lot of funding and money to throw into the sport. I came from a fairly unique position because those are the three things which are critical. They're critical pillars for what it takes to being a racing driver. Apart from just being fast on the track and having the talent and the skill that is needed for that, these three things make up a big amount of what it takes to being a racing driver. I came from a fairly unique background, just tried to chase my dreams. I was a huge Formula One fan. I think I was 4 years old when I first said that I want to be a racing driver. And I announced that to the world when I was 4 years old. That was my parents and my family. And to be honest, I think they would have been happier if I said I wanted to be an astronaut and thought that was more achievable in a place like India. But that passion grew in me from a very early age. I started following the sport of Formula One. I started playing a lot of PC games and the F1 game, a lot of other games on the PC. For all the gamers out there, you should know that, yes, gaming does help in some way, and we'll get to that later. I really delved into just getting a very deep understanding of the sport. I was never the most academically bright student, but the one thing that motorsports pushed me towards was trying to understand the science behind the sport. It was trying to understand the physics behind driving and understanding all these different layers and aspects that go into competing in motorsports. One of the learnings that this taught me was that the shortest route isn't often always the quickest. And what I mean by that is understanding racing lines. When I was playing those games on the PC on a keyboard, it's almost no chance that that would have any relevance and translate to me actually driving a race car on a racetrack, but it actually did. Because that allowed me to understand racing lines. That allowed me to understand the tracks and understand fully and well enough the environment that I was going to compete in. To give you a short example and at a very simple level of racing lines, most people think that you approach the first corner, you're going to go into it as fast as you can at 200 kilometers per hour, make it out of the corner, and you're going to be fast. But that's wrong. As a driver, what you like to do is generally build your speed and go slowly in. So what seems like the fastest route and the most logical is often not the quickest. Just to maybe emphasize that, we can do a little experiment. You don't have to do this right now, but I would like to just take the letter D to demonstrate that and try to explain what a racing line is in very simple terms. If you look at the letter D in capital, you're going to be drawing it like this. And the shorter you try to make the curve, the harder it gets. The wider the curve is, the easier it gets. And that is precisely what a racing line is. And that is what I mean by the shortest route isn't often always the quickest. Now, if you take the letter B, and don't worry, I'm not going to go through all the alphabets, but if you take the letter B after that, you have two Ds basically. And what that means is that that's one turn and then another turn. And so if you're already slow in D, you're not just slow there, but you're going to be slow on the next one. And that is why it is so crucial and critical to follow your methods, follow the system, and I would say in some ways, don't try to take shortcuts in life as well. I had this itch, a few years went by and I had this itch inside me I wanted to learn how to drive when I was 10 years old, which obviously was thrown out of the window by my parents instantly. And so I started competing at the local go-karting tracks, went through a couple of different club level competitions and had a decent amount of success there. I also took part in my first car race when I was 18 years old, which was an autocross rally in Bangalore. This was a race which a friend of mine and we had seen and come across on Facebook. back then, and we reached out to the person and somehow made an online deal over the internet to go and race in Bangalore. Convincing our parents was a different story altogether. We landed in Bangalore. We were supposed to have the car ready. We were supposed to get 2 days to practice with the car, and we reached the garage. None of that was there. No, it was not a scam, but the car just wasn't ready. And that takes me to my next point, where racing is glamorous. It is glamorous, but there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that people are not really aware of. There's teams, you've got mechanics, you've got so many thousands of different parts that can go wrong, including the human driver in there as well. And it takes all these things coming together to have just one successful race. And then when you add that up into 10 and 20 successful races and championships, it's a whole different story altogether. Talking about glamour, yes, it is there. When you're a spectator, when you're a guest, you do get to see the really nice sides of motor racing. But as a competitor, let me tell you, it is a whole lot of hard work. And just to demonstrate that, the day we reached there, me and my friend were supposed to be racing drivers. It's the first drive, first time we're racing in cars. And we thought we made it to the top of the world. And then we reached the garage, car's not there. We had a nice reality check in front of us. We spent the next 6 hours in the day going to this one road in Bangalore, which had about 15 different car dealerships. And we went to each and every dealership and just took test drives of the car, just so we could get some practice of driving a car. So that was far from glamorous. And till today, I still apologize to all the different dealerships that we maybe led on at that point. It is a financially dependent sport. There's a whole lot, as I said, that goes in behind the scenes to make a motor race happen, and somebody has to be paying for that. If you don't have a lot of money to throw into the sport, it can get quite challenging, where you need to go out there, you need to look for funding and seek sponsorship. Driving and racing is known as the fastest advertising board in the world. It's also known as the quickest way to make $1 million after you spend $2 million. It is a sport that really drains the wallet. And so having done a couple of races here and there, I was then in college and trying to go out there and get sponsorship, which really was years and years of just sleepless nights, doing my studies, at the same time sending out thousands of emails, going out to offices, just directly approaching people, landing up at the office and saying, hey, this is who I am. I want to race. I want to take you on this journey with me. Let's talk. 90% of the times you would get rejected because, of course, we are in India, you have to understand the market, and the market then was Bollywood and cricket. And if it wasn't either of those two things, it was extremely difficult to move forward with that. But I kept at it, just kept trying to, get funding and at the same time try to dovetail and make sure that I finish off college as well. That is where I came across this competition known as the Nissan GT Academy, which is a very unique and innovative driver development program by Nissan, which was started in 2010. The whole concept was from virtual to reality, and it literally was taking gamers going from virtual to reality with the reward of $1 million contract. I somehow missed this the first year that they launched in India, which was in 2014. I had my exams in college going on, and I was not able to take the time out to compete and try to get into that. For me, it was making it a point that no matter what happens the year after that, in 2015, I am going to make it to the top 10 for sure. I spent a whole year waiting and preparing in anticipation. As I say, preparation is everything, and you need to prepare for success. But there's two sides to the story, because at the same time, I was a young guy. I was 24 years old. I had a lot of confidence in my abilities. So while I say that I was preparing, I was really more or less just waiting. 2015 was the year I was supposed to graduate college. And in my mind was always there that, okay, I finished college in May. The deadline is in June. I'm going to go back home to Bombay, get on my PlayStation, and qualify, no problem. But little did I know, there's so much that can go wrong. Firstly, there were people that have been preparing for 2 years that did not qualify in 2014, and they were trying again for 2015. Secondly, it was a highly competitive environment of, 20,000 people trying to get through. I went back home, got into my PlayStation, updated the game, and my PlayStation crashed out. So then I had to find 2 days, in the next 2 days, to find another way to qualify. I went to my friend's house and his PlayStation crashed out as well. At that point, I was really kicking myself that it had been a year and a half that I was anticipating and waiting for this. And yet I didn't take my precautions. I didn't take any precautionary measures to make sure that, I get through to the next stage. I was extremely disheartened, disappointed in myself more than anything. And so 1 week later, I went to the Nissan India website to check who has made it through, but also to tell myself that, okay, if this year didn't happen, next year is 100% going to happen. And I'm going to sign up for it right now and qualify right now. And that is when I went to the website and I saw they still had a qualifying event in a mall in Chennai. I happened to speak to my family at that point, and they told me just get on the flight and head out to Chennai. So I go to Chennai, I go to the mall, you get 10 laps to qualify. And for the first 9 laps, I was 0.1 second away from the qualifying time with 1 lap left to go. And I was, again, just completely disheartened. I was on the verge of giving up. I had taken my hands off the steering wheel, which is when I told myself, I have 1 lap left, and why should I give up? Let me just try to get through on this. And I did. That 1 lap somehow magically came out from nowhere after being just 0.1 away for each and every lap before that. And then I got a call from Nissan India saying, you made it through to the national finals, which was the top 20 out of 20,000 drivers. You need to stay back in Chennai. And we've got 3 days of evaluation, out of which the top 5 are going to go to the UK to compete in the F1 track there. That all sounded well and great. But the tricky part was they were evaluating you on multiple different skills, which was how fit you are, how well you can drive, how well you can speak. Seeing that I just finished 4 years of college, I was far from the shape that I would have wanted to be in. We start out with the fitness challenge, and the first thing that we had to do was push-up. That is something that I've done all my life, and I made it a point that, okay, this is something that I can definitely score well on. Mine was the first group. I remember going out and doing about 35 push-ups where I really wasn't in shape, and it was really pushing myself to the max. And the next group, I saw someone doing 42 push-ups, and that is when I told myself, okay, the next challenge is a plank, and I'm 100% going to get maximum plank. I didn't get the push-ups, but I'm going to get the highest on this now. And then we went into a plank, and I couldn't hold on for more than 1 minute. If anyone out here has tried a plank, you know that if you're not in shape, it is something which is hard to hold on to for longer than 30 seconds. I ended up pulling out that plank for 5.5 minutes, which is pretty good, and by far the longest I've ever done in my life. Somehow through the fitness challenge, the driving challenges, made it through to the top 5 to get through and represent India in the UK. I had 1 month to prepare for that. And in that 1 month, I did absolutely everything that I could. I had noticed that without taking precautions and without preparing, I had somehow managed to get through. But now it was time to really put my head down and get through it. In 1 month, being someone that has never gained weight in my entire life, I put on 5.5 kilos of just muscle mass. When I reached the UK and they tested me twice because my body fat was 5% and they were surprised that the machine was giving that number out. We drove a whole lot of cars, and it was a lot of mental and physical preparation of just being out there for 2 weeks and being in a racing boot camp. I eventually made it to the top 15, but there's 2 instances that stand out for me out there, which is about making your own destiny. And there were 2 moments where we had a coin toss, which decided which car the drivers would get. And while both the cars were equal, there were always rumors that one car is doing well and the other car isn't. The first time this happened, I didn't call the toss, and I was like, whatever car they give me, I believe in myself, I'm going to go and beat the other guy. I was beating the other guy until I made a mistake and lost out. The second time it was happening, I again had that same belief in myself, but something inside me just told me that if this is the do or die situation, and if this is going to get me eliminated, I should take destiny into my own hands. So it might seem like a really small thing, and by no means am I saying that I predicted what the coin toss was going to be accurately, but I decided to take matters into my own hands. And I said that I'm going to take action rather than just sit back and react. The coin toss did go in my favor, but even if it didn't, what was important was the mindset that it put me in, knowing that I'm going to take action and make sure that I will do what I can rather than just sit back and react. I eventually made it to the top 3 in India and the top 15 in Asia. While I did want to make it all the way, at the same time, it was really an eye-opening experience for me, being able to drive Formula 3 cars that went up to 250 kilometers per hour, driving endurance cars that compete in Le Mans that can corner at 200 kilometers per hour. Was really a life-opening experience for me, but also gave me a lot of validation and justification that yes, this is something that I'd believed in for more than 10 years. And now I finally got the chance to showcase that. And I actually did reasonably well. The next thing that I want to talk about is challenge yourself for growth, because I came back from that, I started working, and then I quit my job 1 week before a race in India, when I decided that I'm going to go there and compete. This was the fastest single-seater championship that we have in India. There was absolutely no reason I should have been allowed to drive that, but I somehow convinced the organizers that, I have driven all these cars and I'm 100%, the right guy and I should be here. That was also an eye-opening experience, just being thrown into the deep end and then you either have to sink or swim. It was trying to overcome all those challenges, understanding the car, understanding the track, getting over that. But I think in that period is where I grew the most, and I grew the most personally and as a driver as well. And being able to finally overcome those challenges, set me up for my next few events, where I decided to take part in the Volkswagen Championship, which was also a national racing championship in India. 1 week before the race, I did not have a racing suit and I did not have a helmet. Somehow I had to organize the helmet in the UK and order that, and that had to somehow come down. I had to call 15 different people just trying to get hold of a racing suit. And this is all happening in the days prior. I actually managed to get sponsorship twice successfully. And that was after I'd slept 3 hours a night for one entire week. And this was 1 day before I was set to take off for the race. And I decided to just show up at offices, pass on a letter to the CEO, and see if they would meet me. 1 day before I left is when I actually managed to get sponsorship for the race in itself. It just shows that you should never give up and keep pushing on. A lot of athletes do speak about, which is the flow state and beyond. Just understanding and realizing the value of mental fitness and being in the right mental state. But racing has taught me so much about life and about just having the right mindset, the right attitude, paying attention to the finest details, and at the end of it, just never giving up. Thank you.